The sun was setting behind the tall buildings. It was the end of a long, tiring day. The streets were busy as always. People walked quickly, looking tired. Cars moved slowly through the evening traffic. Some people were on their phones. Others just wanted to get home. Judge Lena was one of them. She was driving her small black car. Her eyes looked tired, but calm. She had just finished a full day at the courthouse. She didn't wear her black robe now. She had changed into simple jeans and a plain blue blouse. Her hair was tied back, and her glasses rested gently on her nose. To anyone passing by, she looked like a regular woman, maybe a teacher or a mother, but she was much more than that. Lena was one of the most respected judges in the city. She was smart, fair, and kind. She had worked hard for many years to earn her place in the courtroom. But today, none of that would matter. As she turned onto a quiet street, she noticed flashing red and blue lights in her mirror. A police car was following her. She sighed quietly and pulled over to the side of the road. She didn't think she had done anything wrong. Her license was clean. Her car was in perfect shape. She waited calmly. The police officer stepped out of the car. He was tall, white, and walked with a strong, fast step. His name was Officer Brad. He had a rough face and hard eyes. He was not smiling. He walked up to her window and knocked hard on the glass. "License and registration," he shouted. Lena looked up at him through her glasses. "Good evening, officer," she said kindly. "May I ask why I'm being stopped?" "Just give me your license," he snapped. She stayed calm and handed him her license and papers. Her hands moved slowly, clearly. She didn't want to make any sudden moves. She knew how quickly things could go wrong. Officer Brad didn't even look at her face. He stared at the papers, then at her car, then back at her. "What are you doing in this neighborhood?" he asked. "I'm going home," she replied. "I live just 10 minutes from here." He narrowed his eyes. "You live here?" "Yes," she said softly. Brad didn't believe her. He looked at her skin. He looked at her clothes. And in that moment, he made a decision, not based on the law, but on his own thoughts. "I need you to step out of the vehicle," he said. "Is there a problem?" she asked again. "Now," he yelled. Lena paused. She had every right to ask for a supervisor. She had every right to stay in her car. But she also knew how these moments could end. She slowly opened her door and stepped out. People on the street started to look. Some pulled out their phones. A woman in a nearby car started recording. Brad grabbed Lena by the arm. He turned her around and pulled out his handcuffs. "Wait," she said firmly. "You're making a mistake." But Brad didn't listen. He was already snapping the cuffs onto her wrists. "This is not how you treat someone," she said, still calm but stronger now. Brad laughed. "You people always say that." Lena's face changed, not angry, not scared, just disappointed. As he pulled her toward his car, she looked straight at him and said something that made him pause. "Are you sure about this, officer?" He didn't answer, because he had no idea who she was. The room fell into deep silence. All eyes were on Officer Brad. He stood at the front of the hall, not in a police uniform, but in a plain shirt and pants. No badge, no power, just a man, broken, nervous, and unsure. Judge Lena stood nearby, calm and steady. The mayor, the police chief, reporters, and citizens waited to hear what Brad would say. Some crossed their arms. Some looked away. Some stared hard, refusing to forgive. Brad cleared his throat. His hands trembled as he held a piece of paper. But he didn't read it. He looked up and spoke from his heart. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anyone in this room to clap for me. I came here because I need to say something that I should have said a long time ago. I was wrong." A few gasps moved through the crowd. "I stopped a woman for no good reason. I treated her like a suspect, not a person. I judged her by the color of her skin before I even asked her name. And that's not just a mistake, it's racism. I see that now. Brad paused, his voice shaking. Judge Lena, I didn't know who you were that day. But that's not the point. It shouldn't matter if you're a judge or a janitor. No one deserves to be treated that way. Lena stayed still. Her face showed no anger, just quiet strength. You were calm. You were respectful. And I was the one with the power. And I used it the wrong way. I'm sorry. Truly. Deeply. I am sorry. Brad's voice broke. He blinked fast to hold back tears. I have no right to ask you for anything. But I wanted to face you, face this city, and face what I've done. He lowered his head. Silence filled the room again. Some people looked surprised. Others looked touched. But many were still unsure. Lena finally stepped forward. She looked at Brad, then turned to the crowd. Do I believe him? I believe he feels guilty. That's a start. But guilt is not the end. It's the beginning. Change takes more than words. She looked back at Brad. You've apologized. Now let your actions speak next. Brad nodded slowly. I will, he said. Lena stepped away from the podium. She didn't hug him. She didn't smile. But she gave him something more powerful. She gave him a chance to do better. Later that night, news stations replayed the apology over and over. People online were divided. Some said, he finally admitted it. That takes courage. He deserves a second chance. Maybe. Others said, too little, too late. She stayed graceful. He got off easy. But most agreed on one thing. Judge Lena had carried herself with power, wisdom, and heart. She didn't scream. She didn't fight. She stood firm, and that made her unforgettable. Meanwhile, Lena sat quietly at home, staring at her wall of books. There was no victory party, no big celebration, just silence and thought. She picked up Amira's letter again, the one from the little girl who said she wanted to be like her. She smiled softly. I didn't do it just for me, she whispered. I did it for her, and every other little girl who deserves better. As for Brad, his road was far from over. The police board still had to vote. He could still lose his job. He could still face civil action. But for once, he wasn't hiding. He started attending community meetings. He signed up for racial bias training. He began talking to people, not as an officer, but as a man trying to make things right. Some people ignored him. Others spit at him. But a few listened. And he didn't give up. Because for the first time in his life, he was finally listening too. The days after Judge Lena's speech were not quiet. The city was on fire, with anger, support, and loud demands for justice. People marched in the streets holding signs that said, "Justice for Judge Lena. We stand with her. No more silence." The police department became the center of attention. News vans never left. Every move they made was being watched. People wanted answers. They wanted change. And more than anything, they wanted to see Officer Brad punished. Inside the department, the pressure was growing fast. The captain sat in his office, reading a thick report. It was Brad's case file, and it didn't look good. Complaints from past stops, unchecked behavior, warnings that were never followed. He closed the file and sighed. We should have seen this coming. Brad was placed on suspension. No badge, no gun, no uniform. He stayed home, watching the news, hearing his name spoken with hate. He couldn't go outside without being recognized. People pointed. Some shouted. Some even followed him, filming him with their phones. His phone didn't stop ringing, but he stopped answering. Even his family told him to lay low. Brad sat alone on his couch, thinking about that moment again. The stop, the handcuffs, the silence of Judge Lena, and now the silence around him. For the first time, he felt what it was like to be judged before speaking. Back at the courthouse, Lena returned to work. But it wasn't normal. Everywhere she went, people clapped softly. Lawyers nodded with respect. Strangers left flowers on her desk. Some even waited outside her courtroom just to thank her. But Lena wasn't smiling. She knew the truth. This wasn't just about her. It was about everyone who had been silenced before her, and she carried that weight heavily on her shoulders. In her office, she read a letter sent by a young black girl named Amira. Dear Judge Lena, I saw what happened to you. It made me sad, but it also made me strong. I want to be like you one day, someone who stands tall even when people try to bring her down. Thank you for showing the world what true strength looks like. Lena wiped away a tear. She folded the letter and placed it gently in her drawer. This, she whispered, is why I can't stay silent. Meanwhile, the city mayor called a press conference. He stood before a large crowd, surrounded by reporters and flashing cameras. What happened to Judge Lena should never happen to anyone, the mayor said. We are now opening a full investigation into Officer Brad's actions, and we will also be reviewing the department's entire conduct and training system. People cheered. Some cried. We will no longer accept silence. We will no longer protect those who harm others with a badge. Real change begins now. Back at home, Brad watched the press conference on TV. His hands clenched. His jaw tightened. But deep inside, he knew it was too late to fix what he had broken. Lena received an invitation to speak at a special city meeting. Community leaders, city officials, police representatives, and citizens were all going to be there. Everyone wanted to hear her again. She didn't say yes at first. She thought about it for 2 nights. She sat at her window, looking out at the city. Her city, a place she had worked so hard to protect, a place that had both hurt her and now lifted her. She picked up her phone and called the mayor. I'll be there, she said. On the day of the meeting, the city hall was packed. Every chair was filled. People even stood along the walls, waiting, watching. Lena walked in wearing a simple black dress. No robe, no badge of power, just herself. As she stepped to the podium, the room grew silent. But before she could speak, someone stood up from the crowd. It was Officer Brad. He looked different. No uniform, no pride in his posture, just guilt in his eyes. He held a paper in his hand. Judge Lena, he said softly, may I speak? The room gasped. Lena looked at him calmly. You may, she said. The morning came fast. Judge Lena didn't sleep much that night. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Messages, emails, missed calls, from reporters, friends, even strangers. Some messages were kind. Others were angry. But most of them said just one thing. We saw what happened. We're with you. The video of her arrest had gone viral overnight. It was everywhere. News channels, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. The whole country was watching. Some people cried when they saw it. Others shouted at their screens. Many people said what everyone was already thinking. If this can happen to a judge, it can happen to anyone. Lena sat at her small kitchen table with a warm cup of tea. She wore simple clothes and stared out the window. The sun was rising, but her mind was still full of the night before. She remembered Officer Brad's face, cold, rude, careless. She remembered the sound of the handcuffs, the looks from people on the street, the silence in the police station when everyone finally realized who she was. But now, the silence was gone. The world was loud, and the world was angry. Outside her house, news vans lined the street. Cameras pointed at her front door. Reporters waited, hoping she would say something. Her neighbors looked out their windows, shocked at the sudden attention. Lena didn't step out. She wasn't ready yet. Instead, she turned on the TV. Every news channel was covering her story. Pictures of her face, video clips of the arrest, people debating on talk shows. Some defended her, others defended Brad. But most agreed, this was more than just one mistake. This was about the system. Back at the police station, Officer Brad sat in the back room, watching the same news. His name was everywhere. His face was all over the internet. People were calling him a racist, a bully, a disgrace to the badge. His family had stopped answering calls. His friends had gone quiet. He couldn't even step outside without being recognized now. His career was on fire, and he was the one who lit the match. The station captain entered the room. "You should see this," he said, handing Brad a phone. On the screen was a new headline. "Judge Lena breaks her silence. Live statement at 3 p.m. today." Brad's stomach twisted. "What is she going to say?" he asked nervously. The captain didn't answer. He just stared. Hours later, the city waited. At exactly 3:00 p.m., the courthouse steps were full of cameras, reporters, and citizens. Some held signs that said, "Justice for Lena." Others simply stood in silence, waiting to hear her speak. Then, the doors opened. Judge Lena stepped out. She wore her full robe this time. She looked calm, powerful, and proud. The crowd quieted down. The cameras rolled. Microphones pointed at her face. She spoke slowly, clearly, with strength. "Yesterday, I was treated like a criminal for doing nothing wrong. I was judged by my skin, not my actions. I was silenced, ignored, and disrespected. And sadly, this is not new for people who look like me." The crowd listened closely. "But I am not just a judge. I am a mother, a daughter, a citizen, a human being. And I stand here today, not to ask for special treatment, but to demand fair treatment for everyone." Cheers broke out. Some people clapped. Others wiped tears from their eyes. "I don't want revenge," she continued. "I want change. I want training. I want truth. I want respect. And I want a world where no one, no matter their color, is treated as less." More claps. Some people started chanting her name. Lena looked straight into the camera. "To Officer Brad, I hope you learn. I hope you grow. But most of all, I hope you never treat another person the way you treated me." She stepped away from the podium. No questions, no interviews, just truth. That night, the video of her speech spread even faster than her arrest. Millions watched, millions listened, and many said the same thing. This woman isn't just a judge, she's a leader. But deep inside the police station, Officer Brad sat alone again. This time, he didn't feel powerful. He felt exposed. He felt small. He felt afraid. Because now, karma had a camera, and everyone was watching. Officer Brad sat alone in the captain's office. The room felt cold and quiet. His hands were shaking. Sweat rolled down the side of his face. He looked around the room, but he couldn't focus. All he could think about was her face. Judge Lena's face, calm, but full of pain. He had arrested a judge, a respected woman, a woman he didn't even let speak. He kept repeating to himself, "I didn't know. I didn't know." But deep down, he knew that was not enough. Outside, the police station was buzzing. Officers were whispering. The phones were ringing. And someone had already uploaded the arrest video online. It had started to spread fast. People were watching. People were angry. In another room, Judge Lena sat quietly with the police captain. A glass of water sat untouched in front of her. She looked tired, but strong. Her hands were still red from the tight cuffs. But she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just waited. "I can't believe this happened," the captain said again. "It did," Lena replied softly. "And it has happened to others too. People who don't wear a robe. People who don't have a title." The captain looked down. He felt ashamed. "We're going to handle this. I promise." Lena looked him in the eye. "I hope you do. Because this time, the world is watching." At that moment, a young officer came in with a phone in her hand. "Sir," she said, "the video is already all over the internet. News channels are calling. It's everywhere." The captain sighed. That was fast. Lena stood up slowly. The truth always comes out fast. when people finally care to look. Meanwhile, Brad was told to stay inside the station. He wasn't allowed to go home. His phone buzzed with messages, some from friends, some from people he didn't even know. Most of them were angry. One message read, "You're trending for the worst reason. Good luck keeping your job." Another one said, "You messed with the wrong person, and now everyone sees who you really are." Brad felt like the ground under him was breaking. He remembered how confident he felt just an hour ago. He had thought Lena was just another person who didn't follow orders. He never stopped to ask her name. He never gave her a chance. All he saw was skin color, and in that moment, that was enough for him to judge her. Now, the world was judging him. That night, the news channels ran the story on every screen. A reporter stood in front of the police station and spoke clearly. Today, a respected city judge, Lena Harris, was wrongly arrested by Officer Brad Thomas. The officer did not recognize her. He made no effort to understand the situation. This is another example of unfair treatment and racial profiling by law enforcement. People watched from their homes, their phones, and their jobs. Some shook their heads in sadness. Others clenched their fists in anger. And many felt like they had seen this story before, too many times. Back at the station, Lena stepped outside. The sky was dark now. Lights from news vans flashed across her face. Reporters tried to talk to her. People called her name. But she kept walking quietly to her car. One young girl stood near the parking lot, holding her mother's hand. She looked up at Lena with wide eyes. "You're the judge on TV, right?" she asked. Lena stopped and smiled gently. "Yes, I am." "Are you okay?" the girl asked. Lena knelt down and looked her in the eye. "I'm okay. And I'm going to make sure others are okay, too." The mother said thank you and held her daughter close. Inside the station, the captain called Brad into the room once more. "Sit down," the captain said. Brad sat, eyes low. "You know what you did, right?" the captain asked. Brad nodded slowly. "Yes, sir." "She didn't yell. She didn't fight. But you arrested her like a criminal." "I didn't recognize her," Brad said. The captain leaned forward. "That's not the problem. The problem is, you didn't care. You didn't ask. You didn't listen. That's what people are angry about." Brad said nothing. "You'll be facing a hearing, and if Judge Lena decides to press charges, we can't stop it." Brad's voice cracked. "Do you think she will?" The captain looked out the window. "I think she doesn't need to. Karma already started its job." Officer Brad pulled Judge Lena by the arm and forced her into the back of his police car. Her hands were still cuffed tightly behind her back. She did not fight. She did not scream. She sat in silence. Her eyes were calm, but filled with sadness. People on the street watched. Some were shocked. Others were angry. A young man pointed his phone at the scene. "She didn't do anything," he shouted. "This is wrong." But Brad ignored everyone. He slammed the door shut and got into the driver's seat. His radio buzzed with messages, but he didn't care. He felt powerful. He thought he had done a great job. A suspicious woman, stopped and arrested. He didn't ask her name. He didn't check her story. He didn't care. Inside the car, Lena sat quietly. Her mind was calm, but her heart was heavy. She had spent years working for justice, and now justice had turned its back on her. The drive to the police station was slow. Traffic moved like glue. Brad hummed to himself. He didn't look back at her. To him, she was just another suspect. Another person to fill his daily report. Lena closed her eyes. She thought about her courtroom. The large wooden bench. The lawyers standing in front of her. The people who trusted her. The people she had helped. And now, none of it mattered, because of one officer who saw only her skin, not her truth. They reached the station. Brad opened the door and pulled her out, still holding her arm. She walked with dignity, head high, back straight. Even in handcuffs, she looked like a leader. As they entered the station, other officers looked up. At first, they didn't react. But when they saw Lena's face, really saw her, everything changed. One officer whispered, "Wait, is that Judge Lena?" Another one stood up quickly and walked toward them. "Brad, what are you doing?" he asked, his voice full of concern. "She was acting suspicious," Brad said proudly. "Didn't listen, gave me attitude." The officer looked shocked. "Do you even know who she is?" Brad frowned. "She's just another." "She's a judge," the officer interrupted. "She works in our city court. She's one of the most respected judges here." Brad's smile vanished. His face turned pale. He looked at Lena again, but this time, he really saw her. He saw the wisdom in her eyes, the strength in her silence, the pain he had caused. "Is this some kind of joke?" Brad asked. "No," the officer said firmly. "You made a mistake. A big one." The station grew quiet. Everyone was watching. Lena didn't say a word. She didn't scream, didn't shout. Her silence was louder than anything. The station captain walked in. He saw Lena, handcuffed, standing tall. His eyes widened in shock. "Judge Lena," he said. "What happened? Who did this?" Lena turned her head slowly toward Brad. The captain's voice grew sharp. "Get those cuffs off her. Now." Brad stepped back, unsure of what to do. His hand shook as he reached for the keys. He removed the handcuffs and stepped away. I didn't know," he mumbled. Lena rubbed her wrists slowly. Her skin was marked red from the cuffs. She looked at Brad, and for a moment, their eyes met. She didn't need to speak. Her silence told him everything. The captain turned to Brad. "Take a seat in my office. We're going to talk." As Brad walked away, he could feel everyone's eyes on him. The same power he felt before was now gone. He didn't feel strong anymore. He felt small. Lena was taken to a quiet room. An officer brought her water and apologized over and over, but Lena said nothing. She sat in the chair, thinking. She thought about the young people watching the video on the street. She thought about the way Brad looked at her, not as a person, but as a problem. And she thought about all the others like her, who never had the chance to speak. The captain returned and sat down across from her. "Judge Lena," he said gently, "I'm so sorry. This should never have happened." She nodded slowly. "I agree." "Do you want to press charges?" he asked. She paused. The room was silent. "I don't know yet," she said, "but I want something to change." The courthouse was full. Cameras flashed. Reporters whispered. Protesters stood outside with signs. Some shouted. Some prayed. Everyone waited for one thing. The final decision. Would Officer Brad be punished, or would the system protect him again? Inside the courtroom, Judge Lena sat quietly, not on the judge's bench, but in the audience this time. She was not wearing her robe, just a plain dress. Today, she was not a judge. Today, she was a citizen, like everyone else. The room was silent as the police review board took their seats. The lead investigator stood and read the results. After careful review, we find that Officer Brad's actions during the arrest of Judge Lena violated multiple policies, including racial profiling, excessive force, and disrespect of a citizen's rights. The room held its breath. We'd recommend the immediate removal of Officer Brad from the police force. Gasps filled the courtroom. Some people clapped. Others cried. Brad sat quietly, eyes lowered. He didn't fight back. He didn't argue. For once, he accepted the consequences. Judge Lena looked at him. He met her eyes for a moment. Then he looked down again. Not with anger, with understanding. Outside, reporters rushed toward Lena. Microphones stretched toward her face. Cameras followed her every step. "Do you feel justice was served?" one reporter asked. Lena stopped. She thought for a moment. Justice is not just about one man losing his job. Justice is about truth being spoken. It's about change happening. This is a step, a small one, but it matters. She turned to the crowd watching her. Today, I don't feel powerful because I won. I feel powerful because I was heard. And I hope every person who has ever felt small, silenced, or ignored knows they can be heard too. Cheers rose from the crowd. People clapped, held signs high, and chanted her name. In the weeks that followed, things began to change. The police department started new training programs. Officers were now required to attend classes on bias, respect, and community care. Body cameras were upgraded. Community leaders were invited into station meetings. The city had learned something powerful from a moment that started on a quiet street. Judge Lena became more than just a judge. She became a voice, a symbol, a leader for those who had none. As for Officer Brad, he started working at a local center for youth, not as a cop, as a volunteer. He taught kids about laws, rights, and how to stay safe. Some didn't trust him at first, but he kept showing up, every day, quietly, humbly, trying to be a better man than the one he used to be. One day, while Lena walked through the city park, she saw a group of children running around. One little girl bumped into her. It was Amira. Judge Lena. She smiled brightly. Lena knelt down. "Hey, Amira. How are you?" Amira hugged her tightly. "I told my whole class about you," she said proudly. "I told them you're the strongest person I know." Lena smiled, heart full. "No, Amira, you're strong too. Never forget that." As she walked away, Lena looked up at the sky. It was bright, clear, and full of hope, because sometimes one voice is enough to start a movement. Months had passed. The protests were quieter now. The streets were calm. But something had changed in the city, and it wasn't just the rules. It was the people. Judge Lena continued her work at the courthouse. But now she also visited schools, colleges, and community centers. She wasn't just teaching the law. She was teaching courage. In one hall, packed with young students, she stood before them and said, "It only takes one person to stand up. You don't have to be powerful to make a difference. You just have to be brave." The students listened closely. Some took notes. Others simply watched her in awe. One student raised her hand. "Weren't you afraid when that officer arrested you?" Lena smiled gently. "Yes, I was afraid, but I was more afraid of staying silent." Officer Brad was no longer a cop, but every Saturday he visited the same youth center. He brought sports equipment, helped kids with homework, and listened when they talked about their fears. One boy asked him once, "Why'd you stop being a police officer?" Brad didn't lie. "Because I forgot how to treat people with respect. I had to lose my job to learn the truth, but I'm trying to be better now." The boy looked at him and said, "I hope other officers learn too." Brad nodded. "Me too, kid." The city council held a special ceremony that summer. Judge Lena was given an award for courage and leadership. The mayor handed her the plaque, but Lena didn't stand on the stage for long. She turned to the audience and held the mic. "This award belongs to every person who was judged unfairly, to every voice that was silenced, and to every heart that chose to speak up, even when it was hard." The crowd stood and clapped, not just for her, but for what she represented. The little girl, Amira, was now proudly wearing a shirt that read, "Future Judge." She walked beside Lena during a community walk. "Will I really be like you one day?" she asked. Lena smiled, touching her shoulder. "You'll be better. You'll lead with heart and fairness. That's what real judges do." Amira grinned and held her hand tighter. Final lines, emotional ending. The world hadn't changed overnight. There were still problems, still struggles, but thanks to one quiet voice, speaking out on a loud, unfair street, thousands of others found the strength to speak too. And sometimes, that's how justice begins.